Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is Abeaton James Linden.
Beaten James Linden. In the words of Stormzy, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Planet FPL champion by a whopping
Congratulations, mate.
7 points. Yesterday was a mess. What a day.
Why was it a mess? Because this is all I keep hearing. Maybe for me, just sitting looking
Because
at a
I
computer screen, talking to people, it felt easier. I don't know.
Um, timings were all screwed up because obviously, as I'd mentioned, I was having a little barbecue with a few mates coming round, which I told them to come around between 1:30 and 2. So as soon as I got there, your stream was running in the background. I was listening to your stream at the same time as people trying to ask me where beer in my fridge was and cooking ribs. And I wanted to. I had a couple of moves in my mind. It was either going to be A or B, and it was going to be depending on the team news, which way I was going to go, like safe or risky. Well, riskier, let's say. And the closer we got to the deadline, the less there was any concrete team news, the more confused I became about which way I was going. The more drunk I was getting, and the less I cared about team news. So by the time we got to it at 5, I made my transfers at 5-3. I didn't actually bother to check any last minute team news because it was just so noisy with so much stuff. So I thought I'm just going to go with my gut, do whatever transfers I'm going to do, and then leave it. But it was just a lot of noise. That's why I think people felt it was messy, James.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I stayed off Twitter generally while I was doing my stream the last hour and a half because the noise on there can be a little bit unbearable and a bit overpowering. You need to do this, you need to do that. This person said, this person didn't say that. Can I trust person X? And I just think, oh, God, get away from it. I spoke all week about knowing who to trust and then believing in them and then not believing in anybody else and all the not listening to the nonsense in the background. The major problem yesterday was everybody thought they were getting a Manchester City team link off of FPL
Rockstar.
Scarface.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, no, Rockstar said after game week 36, I think, after Chelsea Norwich, he said, that's me done for the season. That's
Yeah.
fair enough. I believed
Mhm.
him. But he'd said Rockstar, Scarface was good. Scarface's record was 100% as well in terms of team leagues. Everybody wakes up on Sunday morning and Scarface's Twitter account's been closed.
Yeah.
And that's what really caused the panic because then it's like, can we trust this person? And it's just the answer, no. No. There were a couple of things that came out very late from sources we trust. One on your team. We knew the
Mhm.
West Ham team about 1:45, 2:10 to 3. We knew the Chelsea team 2 minutes before deadline, and we knew the Leicester team about an hour before deadline, and we were pretty confident we knew a very unexpected Liverpool team about 6-7 minutes before deadline, and that was because it came from reputable sources, and we just didn't believe anybody
Yeah.
else.
If only I had, if I'd have kept my ears to the ground and listened to the Liverpool team leak, that would have made a massive difference. That would have made a massive difference to me. Um, to the extent of I would have sold TAA instead of selling Robertson, and obviously then that would have had a massive swing in points as well. But ultimately, it was a good enough game week. Where did so just I finished on 75 points, exactly the same as you, and my overall rank at the end is 131,056.
Very well done, sir, on hitting your personal best.
It is indeed the
Um,
highest. It's also the highest rank I held in the entire season.
And same for me at the end as well. Remarkably, this has actually turned out to be considered a disastrous position I was in at restart. The best rank I've had on the podcast, although all three of them were within about 50,000 of each other. But I finished literally just inside the top 150k. So it was nice to finish just inside a big number like that,
Mm.
which isn't amazing. But considering where it was at lockdown, I mean, if you'd have said to me, and this is fair dues to yourself, you just said to me, James, lockdown, you're at 850,000 or whatever I was, you're going to finish at 150,000. I would have been absolutely certain that I was going to beat you.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely certain. So fair game to yourself, mate. We've
But
both had a great run in.
interesting, 75 points is a game week rank of 1.6 million. I mean, That's brutal. That's
Loads of free hits and stuff, mate, and
yeah.
bench boost, people activating chips at the end. So that's not surprising that average was high.
And it's interesting. Like 2 game weeks ago, I had a score of 59. That was a game week rank inside the top 500,000. But yeah, so in the end, I made 2 moves, and I had 2 options. So my initial plan was to sell Phil Foden and sell one of my Liverpool defenders. We'd had a Liverpool leak the day before, right? Or suspicious or predicted.
You mean what I tagged you into?
Yeah, yeah. That wasn't really
And
a
that
leak.
was
It was more a predicted lineup,
yeah,
wasn't
it
it?
was that was me playing mind games with you, mates.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
nothing more than a
But
prediction, although it wasn't far off actually.
no, it wasn't too bad. I ignored that, and then I had Phil Foden. I had the option of moving Phil Foden on for a better City asset, and then I didn't want to leave myself with double Liverpool defense. So the safe option for me yesterday would have been to turn Phil Foden into Mahrez. This is not knowing any team news, obviously. Phil Foden into Mahrez to get that attacking City power, and then Robertson would have just turned to a Burnley defender in Bardsley or Peters or whoever, which would have given me cover there. I would have gone Bardsley, if anyone. Or I decided to go a little bit more maverick and get a City defender in, which I thought they were going to keep a clean sheet, and go with Kyle Walker. He hasn't had that many attacking returns this year, Kyle Walker, only like 4. But I thought I'll go with Kyle Walker and then get Antonio in as my other midfielder and have a bit of fun with it with West Ham. And I went with Kyle Walker and Antonio in the end. And Kyle Walker's 10-pointer literally pulled it out of the bag. So he did particularly well. So I'm glad I went down that route in the end. Having said that, had I listened to some team leaks, I would have got rid of Robbo instead, Trent instead of Robbo, and that would have been a nice little return there.
I knew what I was doing from a free hit perspective on Saturday. I decided I was going to go Martinez in goal and sell Pope. And the reason for that being was there was no sense in going like Pope and Tierney when you could go Martinez and cheap Burnley, basically, to boost up the money.
If only we had hindsight, James, because now looking at it, Tierney scored a goal, right? So
oh yeah, and
so
an assist.
Like that.
It's his assist for the Aubameyang overhead kicks. It was his throw-in, which nobody touched. So he got the assist for that as well. Assist from a throw-in. Welcome back to the Premier League, Rory Delap.
It gave me a smile. Like not that I was taking any pleasure in beating you, but it was funny to think because it's good logic. Tierney and Pope is not worth more money than Martinez and Bardsley or whoever else. But then Tierney going and getting a goal and an assist, can't write it.
So you know me, I'll go big or go home. So I went treble Burnley defensive.
Yeah.
The plan was to go Mahrez, De Bruyne, Sterling in midfield with Richarlison and Salah. And then Aubameyang and Ings up front. Now, the only one that was going to affect me, obviously, I had no information on the Man City team. So once Salah was out, was umming and ahhing about staying Jesus. And the Jesus Mahrez was neither here nor there, actually, basically on their returns. But obviously, I had all that money spare knowing that Salah wasn't going to play right at the death. It's like, what do I do with it? I'm thinking, well, you ain't going to go Antonio. He was the only one that sort of mid-price midfield. I genuinely... I was like, you're not going to go for Antonio, so I'm going to go Antonio. You went Antonio. We both got fuck all out of him. 0.0. Can't believe it.
Useless bastard.
And the regret was obviously in hindsight that I should have gone with one of the Manchester United guys. Now, Martial wouldn't have been enough. Bruno Fernandes would have been. And in fairness, if I'd have picked one, it would have been Anthony Martial, actually. But what actually sealed the mini league win for you, actually, it is that Manchester United penalty.
That assist. For
Martial assist and the Fernandes goal.
Punched the air with joy.
Fernandes gets a fucking 11-pointer for converting a penalty, mate.
Yeah, incredible.
So that's the difference. That's what's won it for you.
I'll tell you what,
Aubameyang. I was obviously watching Spurs because I wasn't keeping much of an eye on it. But obviously at the first drinks break, they were putting the scores up during the Spurs game. I'm sure they were doing it for all the games, like every 15 minutes or so. So I knew what was going on. The first drinks break, I had a quick look. Aubameyang's already got goal and assist, and I'm thinking, right, bang, I'm in here.
Yeah, and you were at that point.
But then Brighton scored.
Yes, and that was a punch the air moment as well.
That was a killer. So if Burnley had kept a clean sheet, I'd have romped it quite comfortably. If I'd have stuck the armband on KDB, I had a look this morning, staggeringly, that in spite of having KDB, I think since game week 2 or 3, I didn't start with him, but I changed it pretty quickly, and he hasn't moved since. I've only captained him 4 times.
Wow. And
I know.
he's up there as top point scorer, isn't he?
Yeah. Deservedly so. And it never went through my mind to captain him yesterday. It was something in my mind that went, it's the security of knowing Sterling's going to play. And none of us actually knew what the City team would be. The only shock in the attacking sense was that Mahrez didn't play, which everybody was convinced about because he didn't start against Watford in the week. But it never really crossed my mind to captain KDB, even though I was part thinking as well that you might, just to block me off, which would have made KDB completely worthless to me. But again, if I'd have captained KDB or even had the cojones to go with Aubameyang, then I'd have won it. So extremely close.
Oh, come on. That's 7 points.
No, you deserved
2,200 is so close.
Do you know what, though? I had a moment before I did my stream, and I did think, I hope if I win, I hope I win big. And what I mean by that is I wanted to get like a 90-pointer and you get 60 or something and blow you out of the water, because I did think back to the Leroy Sané pick. And I did think, if I win this by 2 points, and that nutter went with Leroy Sané in game week 30 for fun, basically.
Because I would have picked Mahrez as the alternative to Sané.
Yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, is that right?
The way I likened it was I was talking because there was a couple of mates of mine who were in a mini league, just 3 of us, and we put 20 quid each on that mini league. And I had a 28-point lead in that league, and my man Rupesh, who was second, captained KDB, so he beat me by 21 points. I think he got 96 yesterday as a game week score, but I still won overall because of my historic lead. It's like winning on away goals. It's like when you got beaten on the day, but you still won. If I'd have beaten you, if you'd have beaten me, but by less than 7 points, so I'd still won overall. It would have felt like a victory, sure, but it would have been like a victory on away goals or something, something like that.
Let me tell you, 2 of the greatest nights of my life have been winning on away goals.
Yeah, true. So it's still satisfying. It's still satisfying. But yeah, it was interesting. And you look back at, we're talking about the choices of yesterday where Kyle Walker's come through, or sticking with the United boys. We could go back throughout the season and think about some other decisions that we had made that easily would have been 7 or 8 points here or there. An armband here or an armband there, a vice captaincy here or a vice captaincy there. It's amazing how many leagues, like, so that league, I ended up winning by 4 or 5 points. This league, 7 points. Obviously, I didn't win many other mini leagues, but incredible the fine margins that make a difference when you get to the end of the season.
The interesting spin-off, I think, for next season for you and I is, I think we'll go into game week 1 next year very confident. You just have that momentum of feeling like, I've jumped 700,000 places, you've jumped 300,000 places and a bit, and you just feel like, well, the end of FPL was all right, wasn't it? Maybe I'm not bad at this lark after all. So I think we go into next season very confident until we see the prices and go, shit, I've only got 100 million now.
Do you want a fun fact, James?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
From game week 23, when I had an overall rank of 725,000, I've only had 2 red arrows. Every other arrow is green.
Blind him.
So it's just the consistency of chipping away. There wasn't ever a massive jump up or a massive jump down. I mean, you had your amazing game week, 140 something points. I never had any of those, but where I used to get averages of 55 to 60, that went up to 65 to 70 consistently, just hitting on that 70 door, kept chipping away by 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 places every week. So the end game, Martial and Fernandez chipping in with 12-pointer, 11-pointer, and what have you, comes back down to consistency. I've stuck with so many players, even Jesus from the restart when they're wild carded, because of their consistency, and they've all come good. I don't know if it'll change my strategy next season, but yeah.
We'll come on to that briefly. Just looking at my own since the restart, I mean, it's probably well known that I had the Mane triple captain disaster and then Salah banging the game week after, which killed hopes of a very, very strong game week finish. The swing was actually about 70 odd points for me, not going Salah and then not reversing the transfer to get Salah the following game week, which then suddenly I'm looking at a very, very good rank. But I'm looking at my point scores since the restart. And if we take out the anomaly of game week 30, bench boosting and all that, and just look at the other 8 game weeks, when he scored less than 70 twice, in those 2 weeks, that was 58 and 52. And the 52 was a higher game week rank than my 75 this week. So that was actually a green arrow. So, I mean, average-wise, that's banging. So I can't look at any regret in what's happened since lockdown. I realise, I think a lot of us have dreamt because there have been a lot of dead teams about. We have to be very honest about that. And also, obviously, the fact that you have beaten me this year, just to be clear and just so everybody knows, I will give you a £50 note. I will find one if I can get into a bank. I need to borrow a face mask off you, to be honest. And on that £50 note, there will be one big motherfucking marker pen asterisk on it.
I listened to the live stream, and the most interesting thing that came out of the live stream, let's talk about this, was, I can't remember, it might have been Woollyback, it might have been somebody who jumped on and said that had we drawn, because you'd made more transfers than me. It was
Gary Robinson.
Oh, it's Gary, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was how tiebreakers were decided, not that it would matter. But the difference was almost 15 transfers or something like that. I think I made 36 in total over the entire. And I suppose it's skewed a little bit because you made use of the unlimited free transfers.
Yeah, I probably took a lot more hits than you during the season, I think.
Exactly.
And obviously, yes, I did make 5 or 6 transfers during the shutdown as well.
Yeah. So it's a little bit skewed, but it's incredible to think that that's the number of changes differential between us. Even if you took some of them out, you probably made 7 or 8 more transfers over a season than me this time round. One every few weeks.
I was more aggressive than I normally am, and it doesn't particularly suit me, if I'm honest. I'd like to get back to getting away from hits next season. I think there's a time and a place for it. And
back to the good old days when you didn't pick Spurs players.
I'm conscious that one of my weaknesses is not being aggressive enough, but I also realise that one of my strengths is patience. So it's time and place and balance, right?
Yeah, really interesting time to reflect back now. I would like to be more aggressive. I think the reason is because of the endorphin rush. When you take a hit on something and it pays off, it gives you that satisfying kind of endorphin rush of I did it and it worked, and then you brag about it and all that kind of stuff. It makes you look like a hero. Whereas the consistently chipping away, like Bruno Fernandes, since lockdown, including the 2 captaincies, must be close to 130, 140 points for me. Incredible. That's consistently just chipping away. I'd rather that than every now and then a De Bruyne. He gets his 19, 20 pointers every now and then, but then 1s and 2s in between.
Have you got faults? And I just discuss it briefly because we do get asked this a lot. Have you got faults in your mind preset in terms of I definitely want that player next season? Like we all sat here this time last year and went, definitely getting Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yes.
And those players are?
Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, okay.
No doubt. That guy is so consistent.
What wouldn't you pay for him?
11 or 12, I'd have to ask a question. But Bruno Fernandes, if he's 10 or 11 million, I'd probably, straight in. Kevin De Bruyne, again, I think, look at his consistency. I think Trent and Robbo, the price differential between those two will be fascinating next season. I really think, again, it could be both of them. But I'd rather have Trent. If there's $1 million in it, I'd rather have Trent. But I think Robertson is just as capable, and he keeps getting better and better. Different type of threat. I think Trent with his free kicks has probably got a higher goal ceiling, but Robbo bombing down the left can be equally good with his assists. So those guys are really, really in my thoughts. I think Danny Ings, mainly because I don't think he'll have such a high jump in price. I mean, he's not going to get into double figures, in my opinion. He'll still stay south of 10 million. And he's still going to be the main man. And
get him if he's 9 million?
I think so.
I think, and we'll come on to this, but I think Che Adams is going to offer a great alternative to him next season.
He will. He's had a good end to the season. But I just think Southampton overall have had a good second half of the season since they got that smashing at the hands of Leicester. To turn it around from there, where we thought, my God, these guys could be in big trouble, have really done well. So Danny Ings, I think, is a real consideration. He's been so good for next season. Uh, Burnley defensively, I think will still continue to be good. Sheffield United defensively, I think will still continue to be good.
Could be
Um,
priced very different next year, won't they?
yeah, that's the problem. They'll get into that mid to premium tier, like
Not
where
buying not buying John Lundstrom as
Disney.
a 6 million midfielder now.
No, no, he's not as tempting. So I mean, there's other players that have got my eye, depending on where they come in. I think Chelsea, from an attacking point of view, could be if they click from day one. The players that they've got and are going to have, if they click from day one, I mean, just thinking about it on paper, James, whether it's Ziyech and Werner and Pulisic and Mount and Giroud and Hudson Odoi and Barkley and all of these guys, they could score a lot of goals. They could score a lot of goals. So,
Tammy Abraham.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
No.
Um, I
just
mean,
just for the Saints fans out
yeah,
there, just because I know it gets mentioned a lot, just to confirm, obviously that was 9-0 that you lost to Leicester, because we know no one ever mentions it. I've got quite a few players in mind. Well, it's probably 5 who I think, obviously, look, he's price dependent, but I just think Trent, Doherty, Robertson, fuck this, done, forget about it,
mm-hmm.
and Bruno and KDB, and then spine of 5, and like fuck them, they ain't moving, and then just play around with from there the rest of the team.
Yeah,
but it's all obviously price dependent. If KDB and Fernandes are both 13 million, I'm probably not having both.
Can't afford them. They won't be at that level, I think.
What will be interesting, I don't want to talk about this too much now because we're doing a Patreon pod on this tomorrow, but obviously if Bruno and KDB are extremely expensive, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens next year with Salah and Mane, because they almost get forgotten with the conversation at the moment. Correct. And are obviously still both powerful and brilliant players. But yeah, I would love it personally if the 4 of them were all 12.5 million. I just think that would be so good for the game.
Yep. I'm tempted next season. We're reflecting a little bit. It's interesting. I don't know really. I don't think I've had enough time out of the game to really crystallize my thoughts about next season. But I'm tempted to try and adopt a strategy of 4 or 5 big hitters, like you've mentioned, and then trying to find cheap gems around it rather than spreading my funds thin. So having lots of 7, 8, 9 million. I'm happy to go in with like 4 or 5 at 10, 11, 12, and then find the cheaper defenders, cheaper goalkeeper, like a Souček. If Souček's 5.5 million, he's straight in, and I'll play him week in, week out as well. If it means my midfield was something like Souček, Fleck maybe, and then De Bruyne, Fernandes, I don't mind that kind of balance because the other two will chip in from time to time with their points.
I think you'll find that's the sort of midfield that a lot of people will be starting with, actually.
Yeah, similar. Forwards, I think, is going to be interesting next season. The only premium striker that delivered consistently throughout the whole season, you'd say, is Aubameyang. Kane fits and starts because of injury. Aguero fits and starts because of injury. Had both of those guys played the whole season, yeah, no doubt, they could have delivered the same number of points. Aubameyang was the only one that was really throughout the whole season as the premiums. And then Jimenez, Vardy, Ings have all delivered as well. Yeah, I think premium strikers is going to be something that people shy away from next season.
Harry Kane, 18 goals, but don't let anyone tell you that he's finished, right? It's not bad, is it? 18 goals in 29 games, but he's finished. Playing under fucking Mourinho as well.
It's the nature, it's the consistency stroke nature. So if he's got a lot of games where he's got 2s or 3s and then loads of blanks, that's what frustrates people a lot. Whereas if Jimenez, for example, is just 1s, but they're consistently 1s, I think people gravitate towards players like that because when you captain a guy and he blanks and then a week later scores a brace, how irritating is it? And that's probably the situation with Harry Kane. In the same breath as you talk about Salah and Mane, Raheem Sterling's got to go into that bracket of could be a forgotten character that can pop up and really do damage as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you start going Bruno and Fernandes and you do want Ings is going to be. I'm going to guess he's going to be around the 9 million mark next year.
9
Mate.
million's okay.
22 Premier League goals is not a joke, right? He's going to be big next year. Jimenez is going to take another jump again, definitely. So if you want these guys next year who are not probably the top in terms of they're not playing for a title challenging team or anything like that, and you want a Bruno and KDB and stuff, you're going to struggle on that opening weekend to be considering people like Sterling's going to be big again. Riyad Mahrez is going to have a big jump. Fitting these guys in, it's always good, all well and good to have in my mind now. I want 8 or 9. I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to afford them. So, or everybody in which case depends on player price, right? So if I say the guys will know, listen regularly, Trent, first name on the team sheet for me. If he's 10 million, I've got a decision to make. But I also know he won't be. But if KDB's 13 and Bruno Fernandes is 12 or something, then I think like we're in a position where choices have to be made and sacrifices will have to be made. I suspect Bruno won't have as big a jump. I think he'll be about 11, I think. Which if he does next year at 11 million, what he's done since he's joined the club, then it'll be an amazing purchase. Yeah, genuinely, yeah.
Yeah. So many different kind of permutations. We haven't even thought about the promoted sides yet, because they will be able to offer some value. We obviously don't know who's won the playoff yet, but I wouldn't say that West Brom or Leeds come up with the reputation of being particularly stubborn at the back. For example, maybe Sheffield United.
To be honest, they'll potentially both have very good cheap attacking assets, especially I think Leeds is a number to look at. A lot of people will already be looking at Mateus Pereira from West Bromwich Albion. These guys are probably going to look to strengthen as well. I wouldn't overly get down into the thoughts of who you're going to have from those clubs. And obviously other teams are going to go and buy as well. I think next year, right now, is going to be key identifying early who's gonna break out from 6-7 million in sort of the forward department and midfield department is going to be really important next season. So when getting on Danny Ings before he goes off, basically, that's going to be really important next year.
Reclassification of certain players could cause another complication. I mean, Mason Greenwood staying as a forward's fine for me, and if he's still 6-7 million because he's cheap, I mean, how can they jump him from 4.5 to high numbers? Do you think Martial will get reclassified as a forward?
Yes, but you don't know this yet. We're doing a whole podcast on reclassification tomorrow.
Oh,
so
nice.
Park it.
I mean, Antonio, midfielder, could be pushed forward. But what his history at West Ham, 2 games and he'll be at right back again, knowing what
maybe, yeah, true.
His is less as clear cut as maybe Martial. So that will obviously have an impact as well on which players are where and what have you.
Aye. Well done, Suj. Well
End
done.
Of the season, eh? It was a bit roller coaster. I think you were ahead by enough around about the 50-60 minute mark, but it was that Fernandes penalty and then the second Brighton goal, at which point I think in the last 10 to 15 minutes I thought this is done here. I had a 15-point lead and I didn't think you'd catch me in that last 10.
If I was ever ahead, I wouldn't have known it.
No, you were busy watching the Spurs game.
Oh, what a game that is. Mate, I'm telling you, whatever you watched yesterday, if you miss Crystal Palace and Tottenham, you've missed one of the games of the season. I can't wait to tell you about it.
Well, let's have a quick rundown of the games. I watched the first 75 minutes of Leicester versus Manchester United.
Oh, you didn't watch West Ham?
No, I didn't. I had it on in the background. And then a very good friend of mine who is a Bournemouth fan texted me, "Come on, Suj." So I was like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch over from Leicester, Man United to West Ham Villa and support West Ham in the hope that they get a goal for you. And I switched over. 2 or 3 minutes later, Jack Grealish scored. And then obviously we scored again straight after. So I caught the end of the West Ham game. But other than that, it was mainly the Leicester Man United game that I watched. But I had 5 people around my side. One guy on his phone, he was a gooner watching the Arsenal game. Someone else on their phone watching another game. And every now and then, like 6 or 7 people, someone would pop up, "Oh, You'd be like, which one of you just jumped up and said what? And which game are you watching? And which game's just had a goal in it? It's quite funny. But
Modern day socializing, everybody
exactly,
looking at their fucking
different
phones.
matches on their
Yeah.
tablets and phones. It was funny, but yeah, generally it was the Arsenal game where a lot of the goals were going in. This game, with what happened in the first kind of 20, 30 minutes and Aubameyang, was the one that gave me the fear that you were going to beat me, mainly because of Aubameyang. I thought, all right, this guy's on for maximum bonus points, goal and assist, one behind Vardy. He's going to go for it now.
Yeah, 2 goals, assists, great return from Aubameyang. I really, really fancied him to go off in this fixture. The game kind of didn't go to plan in the sense that I thought it might be one of them if results were going bad for Watford, that their heads would go. And actually, they stayed in the game. I mean, nobody had more big chances yesterday than Danny Welbeck. That's in all the games, by the way. XG massive, considering he didn't take a penalty. Deeney and Aubameyang's was also big, but they had penalties in the game. So what I would say is, in terms of analysing these games, we're not going to go into any tactical detail because I've only watched the one game. So if I did any of that, I'd be completely bullshitting you. Interesting that Arsenal played a back four, though. Might be something to watch out for those looking ahead to the cup final. I think they probably will go back to a back 3/5 against Chelsea, is my instinct. But as I've said many times, I do think this is how Arteta wants to go with a back four, I think, generally. Aubameyang playing in that wide position just doesn't diminish his returns from an FPL perspective at all. Watford, sorry to see him go, but also not sorry because of what's happened over the last 10 days or so, which I think's embarrassing. I hope we kind of find out what's happened. And I'd love to hear the proper reasoning why Nigel Pearson got sacked. It's not to say that he would have kept them up with those 2 fixtures, but I think they'd have had a much bigger chance, personally. There are talents from there that will interest people for Watford.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Ishmael
He'd be the number one. The core 8 will interest a lot of players. Etienne Capoue is not going to play championship football, and they've really missed him over these last 3 games. And genuinely, I would take Danny Welbeck. Danny Welbeck wants to come and sit on the bench for me. I'd be absolutely fine with that.
Me too.
He's just always unlucky with injuries. Will Hughes is a talented player. Delafeu is not going to play in the championship, is he? So I don't know how long Delafeu's out for, but they've actually got a lot of attacking players people would be interested in.
I was going to make that exact same point, James. In the list of all the players you've mentioned, you didn't mention a single defender. Maybe that's their problem at the end of the season.
Well, Ben Foster might get looked at as an experienced head. I mean,
he's getting on a bit though. That's the only problem.
Yeah, but Everton fans would probably say, for example, that he'd be a step up for a year or 2 rather than what they've got with Jordan Pickford, which we'll come on to. But yeah, the players like Dawson, Kabasele, Mariappa, Messina, Femenia, they're all bang average, really. And they've always done enough defensively as a unit. Individually, they're not great. I mean, Dawson on Aubameyang's goal, the overhead kick. What the fuck is that, man? Seriously, you're meant to be the big, strong centre-half. Go and put your head on it. First, go and get in front of him and win the header. Secondly, once he controls it, you've got to stick your head in there, mate, and take one for the team. Just Paul Pogba reference there. But you have to, mate, last day of the season, fighting for your lives. He should be better than that. So I think they'll probably end up in the championship with the same back 4-ish or so, but I think it's only a championship back 4 at its best anyway. I think they've just not seemed right since the restart. They didn't have the same energy that they had pre-lockdown. Think back to the Liverpool victory and even then further to good results and performances when Pearson first came in. They just didn't have that same energy. I suspect something probably was going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. But yeah, be a few interesting ones. I'd be really interested to see where Sarr goes.
Yeah.
Really interesting because he's got the ability and he's got lightning pace.
Burnley 1, Brighton 2. Everyone banking on this Burnley clean sheet and the team doing everything they can to get Nick Pope the Golden Glove. Didn't work out as planned. It was like, even when the second Burnley goal went in, I was like, that's a -3 for James, because you'd gone all in, like 2 goals down, a -1 for each of those is quite a big hit to take when things were so tight. I wouldn't have foreseen Burnley conceding 2. 1, I could have thought, you know what, they might leak 1, but to concede 2, what actually happened there?
I wasn't overly surprised that they didn't keep the clean sheet. I just thought everybody was intending to go and have something of it with this golden glove on the line for Pope. And therefore I was going to go all in and have the lot of them. That was my take. And I don't regret going for the triple of them, because even if I look through the clean sheets and who I potentially fancied yesterday, like the Liverpool team, without fully knowing it, wasn't worth trusting it. So Trent was definitely coming out. And once I'd seen what the Liverpool team was actually going to be, looking at Robertson or Van Dijk, and the guys who watched the stream will know I said could be Van Dijk's day today, wasn't worth it, because I just thought, do you know what? With that team they're putting out, they might even get beat here. So I didn't fancy that. Those I also potentially fancied cheap options were yourselves. Mm-hmm. Didn't keep the clean sheet. Arsenal didn't keep the clean sheet. The only other one I really kind of fancied was Brandon Williams, who sat on my bench, would have got me a 7-pointer, but I couldn't be certain he was going to start over Luke Shaw, and I wasn't prepared to pay the extra for Maguire's or Wan-Bissaka's or so. So no regret in going in on the triple up. The clean sheet went because Vis Bissouma, who hasn't scored before for Brighton in 50 games, decides to score one of the fucking goals of the season. Like, it's an unbelievable goal. That's why the clean sheet went. And the second one's really good for Maupay and Connolly in the link-up. They've got a little bit of pace. I like them when they play together, and particularly when they play a 4-2-2-2. I really like the front two together. They are a nuisance. Same problem with them. You can never guess the team. Burnley next year, I suspect will regress a little bit. Really important they hold on to people like Dwight McNeil and Tarkowski, because they're very good players, actually. The goalkeeper's also important for them, but I can't see that anybody would be interested in going and buying him personally, bar maybe Everton, actually. But they'll be fine. Well, Sean Dyche is there. I think they'll be absolutely fine.
Brighton
teams
next year will give value next season, I think.
Brighton next year will definitely improve. And I wouldn't be surprised if Maupay and or Connolly actually do very well next season.
Wolves have run out a little bit of steam at the end of the season. I mean, Chelsea going on to win 2-0 and book their spot in the Champions League. Mason Mount coming good with maximum bonus points, who so many of us are owned for bits and parts of last season. The struggle with Mount for next season, obviously going to be making sure that he gets minutes and keeps his place. But I think with Chelsea that we're going to see a few out of the door as much as we're going to see a few in the door. If they are but strengthening in that area, they've just got too many players. The likes of Barkley, Loftus-Cheek, if someone puts a big offer in, a decent offer in, they could be moved on.
I think Lampard likes Barkley, though, but he's probably the one in there you think, yeah, he's probably
one too many.
Expendable. I wonder if Jorginho might move on as well. Don't forget, they've obviously got he's been injured the last few games, but they don't want to stunt the development of Billy Gilmour, who's a brilliant little player. Have to do things defensively. Popping in Caballero in place of Kepa when he's 39 years old might have fixed the problem. Yes, it's not going to fix the long-term problem. They need a goalkeeper. They need, I think, 2 new centre-halves and a left-back, or a left wing-back if that's how they're going to play. They're another one, Chelsea. I suspect that in the majority of the games, Lampard wants to play a back four, I think. And with the likes of Ziyech and Werner next year, I think that certainly leans into that thinking as well. They need a goalkeeper, need 2 centre-halves, need a left-back. Reece James and Azpilicueta at right-backs, obviously absolutely fine at the moment for them to compete for that. Reece James, obviously, is another one can also play in midfield. I don't see them challenging for the league next year unless they fix that defensively. If they suddenly spend another 150 million and sort out the goalkeeper and the rest of the back four, they could challenge for the title. But not unless they do that. And I don't see that happening with the money that's already been spent there. As Ted has already, Rotation FPL has pointed out to us, and I'm sure he'll point out to us again on COTC on Friday, they obviously haven't spent that much money because they got the Hazard money, right? And obviously didn't spend any of that money last summer because they couldn't. So that's why they've gone a little bit mad. It's fair enough over their annual 3-year period, which they've got to clear with FFP or whatever. It'll be fine because of the Hazard sale and stuff. But I don't envisage them doing much more. I know Havertz has obviously been massively linked with them. It's another attacking player. They need to do things defensively, though. What was it, the second most goals conceded away from home or something?
Yeah,
you ain't changing for a title doing that.
Wolves, if Wolves can copy-paste this season into next season, I think they'll be perfectly happy, right? There's not really as much as they could push on a little bit. they're not really equipped to maybe go top four. They haven't got the depth, have they? Particularly,
I think
they've got good young players coming through, Neto and Prudence and all of these guys, but they are like 19-year-olds who are the support act here, not experienced Premier League pros that they can call on.
I think they'll be very, very disappointed with what's happened to them after the restart. 'Cause they've had, from looking in a position where they obviously had the three good fixtures they came back to, West Ham, Bournemouth, Villa, but they won them all without conceding the goal, and they could smell the top four. So now to be in a position where they're relying on Chelsea to beat Arsenal in the FA Cup final to qualify for Europe next year will be extremely disappointed. Obviously, look, their season is far from done. It's a 14-month season, and should they go on and win the Europa League, they'll be in the Champions League next year. And I think they've got half a shot. You know that. I think they're so well suited to European football. The one that really shocked me yesterday was I could not believe that Coutinho was not in that Wolves team. I couldn't believe it. I don't know what the explanation for that is. If he had an injury, I might have missed it. I'm not deep in the news. But that really, really shocked me that Dendoncker was playing in there. And they played a front three. They obviously went with this philosophy for this one, that if Chelsea were chasing the game, that's when they wanted Traore. He was late in the game. It didn't work out for them. Their problem on the whole is the amount of goals to score, not what they do defensively. They're kind of the opposite of Chelsea. They're very good defensively. That unit now, Bolly, Cody and Saiz is really good. Although Cody should have done much better on the second goal. The wing backs are good. Johnny, Doherty, they've got back up there in Vinagre at left wing back, who will improve again with more minutes next season. The front guys have got to give Jimenez a bit more. That's the one thing they miss, is goals from midfield and goals from the two wide players who need to contribute more in that, because the pressure really is on Jimenez, who's a top striker, to keep delivering it. I can't see, unless they add more goals, them doing better than what they've done this year.
Correct. Palace 1, Spurs 1. I mean, was this as dull as dishwater? Was it a crap game then?
Fucking hell, mate. This was game of the season. What a game, mate. Absolute thriller. Do you know what, Suj? At the end of the game, I turned the game off. This is how I feel. Me and Dad never spoke to each other. I just went, give me the remote. And I put the Chelsea Wolves game on. And he went, nah, stick West Ham and Villa on, mate. We'll see if Villa are going to stay up. I was like, I want to see if Spurs still getting the fucking Europe. You've seen some of these games in lockdown, 12 minutes added on and stuff like that. Let me at least see how many minutes added on. 4 minutes. All right, so I give it to 92 minutes. All right, fucked it off. Put your game on. But while I turned it over, I couldn't get rid of Spurs, because I put the Chelsea game on, and there it is. They pop it up. They put Chelsea and Wolves in small, and there's fucking Mourinho celebrating big on the screen, going mental on the touchline with his coaching staff like we've won the fucking Champions League. Are you serious? It's fucking embarrassing. Embarrassing the way we played yesterday, and to be celebrating qualifying for the Europa League. In 2006, I bought a T-shirt. We were going on a European tour, because it's the first time since I'd been going in 16 years we'd qualified for Europe through a league position. It was a big deal then. It's not a big deal now. It is nothing to celebrate. I'm pleased that we're in it, but it's nothing to celebrate. Calm the fuck down, you weirdo, mate. It's embarrassing. The players on the pitch were just shaking hands and walking off the pitch. And then in his interview after the game, yeah, it's all about me. I've always qualified for Europe. You know what he's like when it's gone well for him. That performance in the second half yesterday was embarrassing. We played well till we scored. And this is a theme with us. We played well until we scored. And then we sat off a bit. Palace did absolutely nothing. The game looked comfortable. We conceded a shit goal from a set piece. And then there was only going to be one winner, which was going to be Palace. And it was only going to come from a set piece. We kept giving free kicks away. They only had one player who was a threat in the air, Dan. He basically won the header for the goal, and he had a great chance right near the end with the header as well. Couldn't mark him. Defensively, shit. Every time we got into their final third in the second half, we went backwards. We played for a draw against the team who'd lost 7 fucking games in a row, mate.
Wow.
What is this? Genuinely, that was embarrassing.
I think we need to save that one for
I had the hump, mate. I wasn't sitting there thinking, oh, great, we qualified for Europe. Me and Dad had the raging hump after that, and it did the job. And that's what people throw back at me. Yeah, well, it did the job, didn't it? He's made sure you didn't lose the game. No, the way he played in that second half nearly cost us the game. Because if we'd have played the way we played the first 20 minutes, we'd have won 3 or 4-0. It makes me so angry, mate.
Frustrating.
Properly horrendous. And that's why I kept telling people as well. People kept saying to me, Kane or Aubameyang. And what did I say? I think we'll win 1-0. When we go in front, we'll sit back.
So for those that are patrons, you've got Tottenham coming this week. Well, we'll go into a bit more detail on that. And those of you who are not patrons, why not?
And Palace, while we're here and while we're at it, fucking awful as well, mate.
I think they're
in trouble next year.
Yeah,
they're in trouble.
Palace will be in trouble next season.
They've got an aging squad, and with or without Zaha, they'd be better off without, in my opinion. He doesn't want to be there. It's absolutely clear. Doesn't want to be there. He's playing like he doesn't want to be there. Look, they give their all. They're a little bit stubborn. They've become very, very average. I would be surprised if Roy Hodgson was there come the end of next season, unless they get a coach in like we discussed with Mig a few weeks ago. They get a coach in who's going to go in with him and shadow him with the idea of taking over from him eventually. But they're in trouble next season. Real trouble. Don't score enough goals. Defensively, okay. In fairness to them, obviously I've missed Cahill and Sacco and Van Aanholt through injury. That's the thing as well. You've got all them Palace injuries defensively, you're not trying to exploit it. Fuck me, man. Next
Everton
game, please.
1, Bournemouth 3.
Let's talk about Jordan Pickford.
I hadn't put a preference on who I wanted to stay up until probably 15,
you got that text message, put the West Ham game on.
Yeah, about 20 minutes before the end, and seeing what Bournemouth had done, I wanted them to stay up. I was like, if I want to pick anyone, like Watford, you're goners now. I'm not interested anymore. And if we can just nick a goal and get something against Villa and Bournemouth win on the last day 3-1 and stay up, yeah, I like that, and I want Bournemouth to stay up. And I'm a bit sad that we didn't do what we needed to do for them. That's not that I don't like Villa, but I did want Bournemouth to stay up at the end of it. I had the epiphany in the last 15 minutes. Yeah.
If they played the majority of the season the way they played over the last 3 or 4 game weeks, they would have stayed up. This is, believe it or not, Suj, in their 5 seasons in the Premier League, this was their second best defensive season.
Wow.
Now, admittedly, they still conceded 60 plus goals and it's not good enough. But yeah, this was their second best out of 5 seasons. The reason they've gone down is because they haven't been good enough going forward this year, and they lost the creativity of Brooks, which was a major blow. And he looked, the little bits I've seen of the game, he looked quite well involved and a bit fitter yesterday. He's obviously come back not fit as well. It's understandable. Ryan Fraser, I mean, when I spoke to Neil on Thursday for COTC, he took it really well. Couldn't blame him and stuff. I'd have been fucking blaming him, mate. That guy hadn't turned up for them even when he was there this season. Should have been putting the shift in for him. And the likes of Wilson, King, Solanke haven't got the goals. But you see him yesterday going with 4 attacking players, what they can do. They're very good on the counter-attack when they do that. They let Everton have a lot of the ball in the game and countered very well on them. They let Everton have few opportunities. The guys at the back have done really well without Aki, actually, in recent games. But it's scoring goals is what cost them. And I think a lot of us will probably do this at some point over the next couple of weeks, Suj. I think a lot of us will look back at our game week 1 teams and laugh at the fact that there were Bournemouth players in it. I mean, I know I had Wilson and Fraser at the start, right? I'm sure I wasn't alone in that thinking either with a good opening day fixture.
They did all right in the first.
So it looked. Imagine that now. Let me get 2 Bournemouth attacking players in there playing Sheffield United. You wouldn't fucking do that again, would you?
I've seen a lot of talk on Twitter about which Bournemouth assets would make good buys for clubs in the league. I think that always happens when a team goes down. Everyone's like, right, vultures, who can we pick off? And I've seen a number of people suggest that of the strikers, King, Wilson and Solanke, that Solanke is the best pick, and that he's the one that they would want, despite the fact that he scored the least goals and has probably got the most question marks around him. But people do seem to think that he is a really good option to come and buy for a club like West Ham or whoever needs a striker. Why is that? because I don't see it.
I agree with that opinion. By the way,
Yeah, I don't think I've seen enough.
Its age profile
Okay.
is one, and two. If you'd have watched him for England in the under-20 World Cup when we won it, you would know there is definitely a good player in there. I mean, him and Calvert-Lewin for England together up front were great, right?
Right.
So Calvert-Lewin's had that consistency of minutes, and I know since lockdown he obviously hasn't scored and all that, but has had a good season. It's kind of been his first where he's been settled in the team. You and I have been screaming it for over a year. Just get him in the team. Get him in the team and play him.
I think so, yeah.
And Solanke's had the same, right? And at that age, when you keep going week after week without scoring goals, it's going to affect you. He needs a little bit of movement around him, a little bit of pace and a little bit of creativity. That's what Neil would say at AFC BNG. They've missed creativity this year. It's not so much on the strikers. So I know that Solanke will be a good player. Wilson and King also a Premier League standard. I think so's Junior Stanislas. David Brooks definitely is. So all these guys might get bought, but the only one I'd see getting bought at the top level of the Premier League is actually Solanke. If Spurs bought Solanke and he was back up to Kane next year, I wouldn't complain. That'd be all right.
Okay. Everton next season?
I wouldn't be overly keen on buying any of the others.
Nah.
Brooks I'd have.
Everton next season? Meh.
Man, hard to say. They've been a little bit unfortunate with things like the Gbamin injury, injured all season. Nobody knows if he's a Idrissa Gueye replacement or not, really. Not good enough defensively. Fullback area an issue because Dean is great with time for delivery, but not the best left back. Coleman's getting on. Salibi's underwhelmed. The goalkeeper is a huge issue. Huge issue. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start in goal for Everton next season. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they just went for something a lot safer, like a Nick Pope, for example, or Ben Foster. Genuinely, right now, Ben Foster would be an improvement for Everton in the short term than Jordan Pickford. He needs taking out the team and getting refocused, or it's going to get a lot worse for him. He's definitely going to lose his England place the way it's going. They've got young players like Moise Kean, who obviously scored yesterday, who we'll want to see more from, could well step up. Their wide players all feel a bit samey, Walcott and Iwobi and, what shit can I buy from Arsenal this summer that's failed there? Midfield needs a lot of work. As it would stand right now, if Everton go into next season with the same squad of players, I don't think they'll finish top half.
Leicester 0, Manchester United 2, which is the game that I watched the most of. I'd say watched. I wasn't engrossed, but it wasn't.
We'll leave it to you then, mate. We'll leave it to you.
I expected more from Manchester United, if I'm honest with you. It was very similar to the game against us. They just didn't have the tempo necessarily to really attack it. But you can see why, right? Obviously, they've got one eye on what's happening in the Chelsea game. And also, you don't want to leave yourself exposed to go one behind. So it was very cagey. And I think at the end of it all, Leicester defended better than I thought they could, because they had a lot of kids in the back line, and Thomas and Justin and what have you. So I thought United might do more damage. That's why I went with Martial as captain. I went with the view that everyone's going City, but Leicester at the back are flaky and United need to win. So I'm going to go with Martial and try and be a little bit different. In the end, they got over the line, and they probably deserved to, in my opinion. They were the better team, especially on the ball, but it wasn't that high-speed, up-tempo United performance where they were able to get in behind and create a lot of havoc. Had a lot of the ball and create some good chances, but not really. And Leicester, to be fair, in the second half, did create some chances as well. They did create some attacking chances. Vardy was a bit of a nuisance. Barnes was okay, but yeah. It wasn't a
I was
thriller.
very surprised that Harvey Barnes didn't start. Very surprised.
When he came on, he was a bit better. But I don't. I think United should have won, but it wasn't an exciting game.
Do you think United played with fear a bit?
It was keep it tight. Staying at 0-0 is better than going one down. I'd rather not go one down than risk going 2-up. They played with
so much at stake. You're liable to get teams that play with a bit of fear in that situation in terms of safety first. I'd alluded to that on Thursday's pod about the way United played, particularly in the second half against yourselves, in the sense that winning or drawing didn't matter. And it was exactly the same scenario from here, right? They knew if they didn't concede, they were going to qualify for the Champions League. And definitely want to protecting your goalkeeper at the moment when he's doing dodgy things with shots from range and stuff. So I think that's why United put the brakes on a little bit. Doesn't surprise me to hear any of that. Plus, against sides like that, they can be ever so strong on the counter-attack. The goals, I mean, the second goal scored by Lingard is laughable. His first goal for about 2.5 years or something mad.
Incredible.
Did you see the geezer had a bet on him to not get an attack in return all season?
No.
With Paddy Power, yeah.
Oh,
because he hadn't had a goal or assist. Now, to be fair, Paddy said they'd pay him, actually.
Oh, fair play.
And anybody else who placed that bet as well. Fucking hell. These guys will do anything for publicity.
Yeah.
But
I saw Jesse Lingard tweeted straight after the game. He tweeted something like, nice way to jump into the Champions League, with a picture of him jumping after he'd scored the goal. And I wanted to retweet with comment, mate, you're moving to West Ham. Nice way, nice way to jump into a relegation battle, mate, because that's where you're going.
Yeah, I don't think Jesse Lingard will. Well, we might be there, but only because nobody else pays what United may want. He's not going to be a regular. It feels a little bit like he's had a few more minutes recently to remind other clubs that he exists.
Yeah, more than anything else.
But I think Lingard in the right system. I keep harping on about that performance that Yeti had in December, which was fantastic. If he's played in the right system and there's no onus on him actually scoring or creating goals himself, can be effective. The first goal came about because they won the ball high, right? They got into... They're getting better at pressing without the ball in certain areas, United. I think they're generally quite standoffish without the ball. There was a good little attack of 2 or 3 bodies went in. Greenwood wins it. And that's why Fernandes is elite. He doesn't think twice. Just plays the man in. No second thought. Perfect pass. Yep. Definitely a penalty. No problem with that. And it's that little bit of quality at the end. That Fernandes pass really is what's won them.
Martial was the most impressive for me of the United attackers. I think his movement...
He's been brilliant since the lockdown. And I feel a necessity to say that because I've always been so critical of him. He's definitely getting loads of sex now, mate. No doubt about it. He's beginning to look the player we always thought he was going to be. And United don't need another striker as it stands. Not as well when they can suddenly shift Rashford or Greenwood into that position if necessary. No problem at all. And obviously, Igalo can play there. I'd say one of the interesting things would be...
And surely Alexis Sanchez is coming back next season.
Well, you've took words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say. One of the really interesting things with United over the course of the next month or so is what happens with the likes of Alexis Sanchez, Lingard, Chris Smalling as well. So United have basically said they're not going to let Sanchez and Smalling go back on loan. They want to sell them, basically. So good luck with trying to get someone to permanently take Alexis Sanchez's wages, by the way. I suspect he will start next season as a Manchester United player.
Yeah. He's a good player, Alexis Sanchez. How's his season been out on loan? I haven't really kept in touch with it.
Very injury interrupted again. I think I'd have to look at it, but I think he's only scored about 4 or 5 league goals.
Okay, interesting. 4 more games to rattle through. Some of these not that relevant to what's happening in bigger picture, but City 5, Norwich 0, as expected. Clean sheet. Kevin De Bruyne, Sterling, Mahrez,
the clean sheet was fortunate enough because obviously Norwich think they've taken the lead through Hernandez. Was the correct call that he was offside. But the Pukki chance as well, which I think was at 1-0. I mean, mate, he's got through 1-on-1 from 60 yards. City just got City must have had a period of play where they've probably had the ball for 3 minutes or so. And the centre-halves have just got a little bit too high. And it literally took Norwich 2 passes and they're through 1-on-1 goals 60 yards out, which I'm a little bit surprised about considering that's what hurt Man City in the first fixture in game week 5. Pukki never looked like he was going to score. Never looked like he was going to score. He won't be a player that I see any Premier League club thinking, I'll take a gamble on him. Again, age profile, he's older than what a lot of people think as well, I think.
Yeah.
I think he'll do well in the Championship for Norwich, no doubt about it. That's where I think he'll be. City, that I haven't watched the games. There's nothing much to talk about other than just looking at some of the numbers this morning. Riyad Mahrez had 5 shots in the box in 45 minutes. I think Raheem Sterling also had 5 shots in the box during the game. As much as they could have conceded, they really could have put on the cricket score that some were expecting as well. Yeah, and De Bruyne, just the little bits you've seen, it's fucking joy, mate. That goal.
Yeah, class. I mean, I listened in on Thursday when you were on Friday, sorry, when you were on Buck Radio. You guys started the conversation around players, writers, player of the year, and what have you. And I agree, you're right. Like the single outstanding performer this season is Kevin De Bruyne, without a doubt. Yeah, can't wait to have him.
It's not to say that Jordan Henderson doesn't deserve football writers, by the way, but the best player in the Premier League this year has been Kevin De Bruyne.
Head and shoulders.
And if anybody says differently, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Newcastle 1, Liverpool 3. I think the early Newcastle goal was lovely because it just negated any clean sheet fears that I had.
It was nice. I didn't know till like 15 minutes had gone. Yeah. But I obviously see that Newcastle were winning. And I did think, yeah, I'm pleased about that because Robertson and VVD in the build-up were still very much under thoughts. And so was Nico Williams as well. I nearly went with him at 4 million. But as I said earlier, what really put me off was the team as a whole thinking, well, I don't actually think they're gonna keep a clean sheet here. Of course, with Robertson, idiot, I should know Trent's not playing, even more for Robbo to get forward. Although, listen, the assist is minor and Origi smashes it in. But yeah, a little bit regret not going for Robertson. Not that it would have made a lot of difference, but I could have, once Salah was out, I could have afforded it easily and decided, no. That's where I have a little bit of weakness. I got stubborn where I went, I'm going triple Burnley. Fuck it. That's what I'm doing. Don't think the team was a surprise, but probably shouldn't be a surprise in hindsight to give some of these guys more minutes, the likes of Minamino, Chamberlain, etc. Shouldn't be a massive surprise. Nico Williams, just on a side note, is going to be a bigger threat to Trent next year. Definitely. He's a good footballer. Not enough to make me worry about it, by the way, but he is going to be a bigger threat to him. And I think last year, everybody had a massive fear. Those who didn't go with Trent in game week 1, the majority will tell you they had massive fear about him on rotation, then regretted it. It might come back around next season. It might come back around, but not enough to make me fear it, I don't think. No. Newcastle need to sort out their takeover or they're going to start next season very, very badly.
Southampton 3, Sheffield United 1. Great little finish to the season for Southampton. Yeah. They're
very
a good team.
I mean, this game could have gone either way by the looks of it because John Lundstrom, having scored once, I'll just tell you briefly on my stream yesterday, I saw something in our Slack channel where someone said, I won't name the person, said that John Lundstrom was playing and had the information. This was long before my stream started.
Yeah.
And I said it out loud. And then once I said it, this is true, and I didn't say this at the time, I couldn't remember if I dreamt it or not. I genuinely was in doubt. I wasn't sure. So I didn't want to look like a complete lemon. But then in hindsight, that's who I should have got as well, knowing that he was going to play for Sheffield United. Yeah, that's who I should have got. And he could have easily had a second. McCarthy actually made an extremely good save from him. And they had other chances. Billy Sharp had a good chance in both halves as well. Should have got at least one. But Saints going forward, that's good. 3 goals against Sheffield United. Impressive. They look like they'll start next season well. It's very dependent on fixtures, etc. And it'll be very dependent on prices. Ings, Adams, Redmond, Armstrong, that front 4, if that's what they start with again, depending on prices, are all worth considering.
I think Che Adams has broken through now finally. I think Danny Ings has had changed strike partners up top, like Long sometimes, Obafemi sometimes. I think if one person now is going to break through and be his strike partner, you think Che Adams has got the
definitely
to be that guy. And if he can then play week in, week out, he might be a decent alternative to Danny Ings if there's a big price differential. Che Adams at 6 million versus Danny Ings at 9 million is a big differential in price. Where if you can't afford Ings, might be a consideration for next season. So it's both worth keeping an eye on.
I think it's punty to say it without knowing the prize. I think I'll start next season with Che Adams. I would bet. You know, I really like him. I stuck him in the dead team this year. His returns have just come about 35 game weeks too late. But he's a player whose career I've followed since he did damage to Spurs, going back to 2015 in the League Cup semi-final. Really, really good player. Really good player. I like him. I think he's got a little bit of everything. I think he'll be a great foil for Ings because Ings is more creative than people give credit as well. I think he likes to spin into holes and have someone ahead of him that he can look for. And that's why it really works for them playing a front two. Che Adams, big shout for starting next season. And Armstrong as well, depending on price, will be a really interesting as well. Redmond just never gets the returns that he should.
Yeah. Sheffield United's next season is, I think, massively, massively hinged on what happens with Dean Henderson. Not just because of the physical presence and the saves he makes, but the reassurance it gives you back four or back five, depending on how they're playing with the wing backs and overlapping and all that. If Dean Henderson goes back to Manchester United, I think they won't struggle, but it won't be the same because the defence won't have the same confidence in the goalkeeper. If Henderson stays, I could expect to see them doing similar again.
They've had an extremely good season. They've had a very disappointing finish. If you remember, before they played us, I said to you that even if they beat us, we'll finish above them. That's how I felt. I felt it was a difficult fixture run. And then you look at it afterwards and you go, well, they beat us, they beat Wolves, they beat Chelsea. You think, oh, fuck me, they're definitely qualifying for Europe now, and they've fallen off a bit. Probably not too surprisingly, because the squad doesn't have a huge amount of depth. It's awkward to say they've been lucky with injuries this year, but they have in a lot of areas. They'll need better depth. I think it's something he's working out. To be fair, when guys like Osborne have come in and played the odd game, Robinson, they've not done too badly. The forward guys have rotated. But I think as much as I love the way they play, I think finishing top half again next year will be difficult. I don't, however, foresee them being in any danger at all under this manager of being under threat for relegation. And should they go and finish 8th again or something, it wouldn't be a surprise. They're a good side, extremely well coached. Maybe next season teams will actually come up with proper plans to stop them because nobody has found a very good way.
Talking of next season, what do you think about Villa? Because they've scraped through. Last day of the season draw has helped, but the inevitability is that Jack Grealish will leave.
Is it? I'm not sure, mate, actually. Because
if Grealish leaves, I think Villa are screwed. I
think if there was no COVID, etc., he was off, definitely. But someone's got to pay the money. So, and as much as you'll want to go, I think it's better for him to go to the right club, which, for example, I don't think it's Manchester City. Mm-hmm. I did think it was Manchester United, but I don't now with the way they're playing and Fernandes in there. So, I mean, Grealish going into that United team now with the front three and then Fernandes behind and Pogba and a proper sitter, Matic doing a very good job at the moment. Where does Grealish get into that? Grealish doesn't fit. The only Grealish fits is in place of Fernandes. Right? That's just not fucking happening, right? So Grealish doesn't fit into that system now. Possibly suits Manchester City style more, but is that gonna affect Foden? Guardiola said that he wouldn't go and buy that type of player. Liverpool, can you see it?
No,
not
Spurs.
Really. But if I was Jack
Arsenal.
Grealish, truthfully, if I was Jack Grealish at the moment, I would be thinking, why would I go to Tottenham or Arsenal? Genuinely, that's what I would be thinking. Why would I go there?
I think Villa are going to struggle next season.
Would he be better? Would he be better off giving Villa another year? I think there's a possibility he might end up going abroad. You know, I just don't see where, even if you include Chelsea as well, can't see where the top four would be interested in buying him. We have heard strong rumours with Man City, but I just don't see it personally. I don't see that it's right. United doesn't work. Liverpool, I don't see. Chelsea, they've got too many players in there already. Leicester, Wolves, he's not going to these sort of clubs. So it does leave Tottenham or Arsenal. And if I was Jack Grealish, I'd be thinking, why would I go to either of those two clubs at the moment? Perhaps there's a bigger picture and a conversation there about Tottenham and Arsenal on a whole. But I don't think, at the moment, I don't think Jack Grealish has got Europa League football in his mind.
No. And West Ham survive another season. Yay.
Well done. Congratulations. Listen, that's all that
Big
mattered,
summer
right?
ahead.
When the manager came in the door, I can see what he's trying to do now with Suchek, etc. Your season next year will again very much hinge on injuries and the likes, mate. You've got guys there like Antonio. I take it he went off injured yesterday.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Oh no, of course you was watching two other teams, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Bowen, I think, will improve and could
Yeah.
offer the alternative that we thought he would do. Defensively, you got work to do. I think you need better bodies.
Fullbacks.
It's clear, and you've spoken about this before. You got people in there like Jack Wilshere on stupid wages, who just is not offering you anything. Find a way to get rid of it, even if it's on loan somewhere, and someone else can take 80% of the wages or something. Find a way to
just get rid.
Find a way to get it off your books, mate. And there's a few other players within the squad as well. I think Zabaleta's gone, hasn't he?
Yeah, Zab's out. I think Moyes is shrewd. And what I've seen with the squad and stuff, in that he hasn't been picking. I mean, Lanzini got minutes yesterday, but he hasn't been picking Lanzini. Anderson, I don't know if he's had a knock. He's not been in and around. He seems to favour players with a higher work rate than Flair. I think that's David Moyes' style. So I'll take that. To be honest with you, we need another central defender. If Diop and Ogbonna stay, Balbuena's average backup. We need a better centre half. We need a replacement for Aaron Creswell now because Masuaku ain't going to be that guy. Ben Johnson, if he's going to get minutes next season, then go ahead and play him and blood him and let him take that right back spot. I think Ben Johnson could be okay.
He obviously played at left back yesterday, didn't he? Which was a big shock. But Ike, who was in the chat, was saying to us that he can play, he can fill in on either side.
Yep.
So,
and obviously, longer term, we need to find a keeper replacement for Fabianski because he's getting on a little bit. I think we still got a season or two of him, but
that goal yesterday was strange, mate. That he conceded. I mean, he's got to be saving that.
Yeah, he's made a couple of mistakes this season. The Liverpool one stands out as well, but you know what? He's saved us so many times that he gets away with it.
The only thing I can think with that one, because it really is a strange one, and he almost dives past it. I wonder if he's conscious of just pushing it straight out, because it was hit hard, and it was at a height where it's kind of going to be at his face, so catching it's going to be really difficult, actually. It wasn't here in his midriff, and it wasn't above him in his head. It was kind of at his face. So it would have been an awkward one to catch, Paul Pogba. But I wonder if he was conscious that he was going to have to push it straight back out. And he's tried to get past it to move it into an area where someone's probably not going to be putting the rebound in. And he just fucked it up badly. It was a strange one. And actually, probably since he's come back into the team this year, he has had a few sloppy ones, which are very uncharacteristic for him because he's improved massively as a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
bring back Roberto, mate.
I think end of season vibes and stuff for a lot of players now. So, all done and dusted. A quick rundown of the game. Should we have a look at some of these Twitter questions as well?
Yeah, let's do it.
For anybody listening, obviously we still have a full week of content coming at you. We'll start moving more into next season kind of planning. We've got content next week for you. Then there's a week off, and then we've got more content. As the game will probably have opened around about 17th, 18th, something like that of August. Fingers crossed. We should be there or thereabouts. And if the game hasn't opened by then, touchwood, we might have some fixtures and a fixture schedule that we can start looking at because we do.
Do you want me to do schedule while you're looking for some questions
for this week? Yeah, let's do it. And while you do, just before you do that, let me just give a shout out to our Patreons. Thank you very much for all of your support this season. For anybody that is thinking of signing up to Patreon, just know that September is a free month. I know it's the 27th of the month today, so don't anybody sign up until Saturday, which is 1st of August. You'll save yourself a few quid. But from the 1st of August, if you sign up, you'll get all of August and all of September, and that would include all of our pre-season planning and our pre-season content. As many of you will know, we have 20 correspondents, one for each club. We've got our next season's correspondents for Leeds and West Brom signed up already. Once we know who wins the playoffs, we'll have someone else as well. So there'll be so much good content pre-season for you that it'll be really good value for you. And obviously, we're taking a bit of time out in August, so we've made September free. To make Patreon even more worthwhile. And I'm blessed with the support from the patrons saying idiots just charge us and take our money.
He
But
did amazing.
I appreciate that as well. But we're not going to. So thank you.
Just on correspondence before I do the schedule, massive shout out to obviously Andy Martin, FPL tactician, who's our new Leeds correspondent.
Yeah.
Basically, this kind of got locked in at Planet FPL Live 2. Andy was left with me at the bar, was the last two drinking. And then I said it out loud on a live stream in October when he was in the chat. I was like, it's yours if you want it, mate. So that's been in the work for a long time. We've given the correspondency for West Brom to Gemma and Harrison Eno. Now, many of you will be familiar with the story of Gemma and Harrison through the FPL community. Harrison, I think he's 11, and Gemma's obviously Harrison's mum. They lost Chris, who was Harrison's dad, and Gemma's other half earlier in the year after a long illness. They've both been very well treated by their club, West Brom. They've had access into the club and stuff. I certainly couldn't think of anybody better to have to represent them. And I'm so excited to speak to Harrison personally. I really look forward to it. The plan is that they will come on for a couple of pods together next season, as long as Harrison feels like he wants to do it. And I suspect with that kid that he probably does. We'll have to tone the language for a couple of pods.
I DM'd Gemma and I said, maybe this is the incentive, James, and I finally need to stop swearing on the shows.
It could be, yeah.
And she replied back to me and she said, trust me, it's nothing that Harrison hasn't heard me shouting at the TV.
One correspondent who will remain nameless messaged me and said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, not fucking swear, mate. We'll have to behave for half hour.
Listen, I don't know if Harrison's listening now, but trust me, no one's going to go easy.
Oh, yeah, that's the point. I said to Gemma, we'll give you a shout out on this one. And now we're still swearing. Sorry, Gemma. Schedule this week. By the way, I mean, look, Fulham, if they come up, Dara will obviously have the job, the Tinkerman.
Welcome back.
If you are a Cardiff, Swansea or a Brentford fan, my DMs are open. You may want to wait till promotion is secure and not jinx yourself, like some other people might have already done. Schedule this week is obviously today's podcast. We'll have our Q&A for patrons today as well. Tomorrow, People's Poll returns. Vote will probably be out by the time you're listening to this. 3 options for you. We can look at free agents, players who are out of contracts, some like Jan Vertonghen and Pablo Zabaleta, and also some nostalgic ones like David Silva, Leighton Baines, who obviously need, we haven't mentioned during the podcast today, 2 FPL legends there in Baines and David Silva. Team leaks. This needs discussing at some point somewhere. How do people feel? Should the FPL deadline be moved? The other option is worst FPL team of the season, because we do like a good giggle. That vote will be live. On tomorrow's Patreon, we're going to look at reclassification of players in FPL, which I've got a lot to say on that for patrons tomorrow. You need to listen to that one. Wednesday will be Sky, and we'll continue doing Sky. We might even do our Sky for Beginners Dummies podcast in 2 weeks, but we're obviously going to do this one as a bit of a wrap-up of the season. Tottenham on Patreon on Wednesday. Thursday, I'll stream on YouTube, chop it up into an audio. Our Patreon podcast on Thursday, Suj doesn't know this yet. Don't worry, I'll do the hard work on it. Will be on Deportivo La Coruña. A little bit of a slight throwback Thursday / what's happening now, because in the early noughties, they had one of the best teams in Europe. I think many of us thought they were going to win the Champions League at one stage or another. They have just been relegated to Spain's 3rd tier. How and why? We're going to cover that a little bit. And Friday is cup final day, because 2 of my favourite teams are in it, obviously. Jesus, what have I let myself in for? Friday's quiz for patrons will be on Arsenal v Chelsea, links between the 2 clubs, previous meetings, etc. And Clash of the Correspondents, last one of the season on Friday. Adam Pritchard at 352 and Ted at Rotation FPL. Arsenal Chelsea ahead of the cup final.
Wow, good rundown of content for people. You know, when people say we do work hard, sometimes actually there's quite a lot of content pumping out.
As I explained to one of my patrons already this morning, though, they will have seen that schedule already. Someone said, you're going to calm down a bit. And I was like, you don't understand how much easier this week is for me, because I don't have to watch 20 games of fucking football. Yeah. So how many hours have I got back this week? It's about 30 hours of my life, actually.
James, we're only going to do one Twitter question. And the reason being is because half of the Twitter questions about one topic only. The others are talking about price changes and player movements, and we're going to touch on all of that this week. Half of the Twitter questions are all alluding to one topic, and we'll spend 5 minutes talking about it, and then it's the wrap up of the show. And you know what it is.
What, and about the deadline?
Team leaks and deadline.
Well, it's in the poll for tomorrow. So if people want it, vote for it. So there's no point covering it now.
Okay, there we go. But that is the majority of the questions on Twitter.
There's no other good Twitter questions. You don't even read out some nice ones.
So we've got Noor Azari, a game week deadline. Should it change next year? Was it panic? It was all panic today.
We can talk about the panic.
Andy Cairns, the deadline shit show is not only an unneeded distraction, it's now affecting the community. Let's get it sorted and change the deadline. Tyrell Maxfield, were those 15 minutes before the deadline the craziest it has been since playing FPL? FPL hindsight, James. You'll probably address this anyway, but what's your opinion on deadlines? I'm not joking, honestly. Benny Blanco, football's a funny old game, but this season has to be the maddest ever.
And that's why it's in the people's poll vote, and I suspect it will probably win it, not trying to influence anyone, but it probably will win the vote. I don't mind if it doesn't, by the way. I'm happy to cover the other two subjects.
At Bad FPL, my question was, how fucking mental was Twitter today before the kickoff deadline?
Were you on Twitter?
No, I stayed off it.
Well, neither was I.
Absolutely stayed off
it. I had notifications on for about 8 or 9 accounts who I thought might pull through in terms of club links or a few sort of well-known press guys, etc., who I thought might pull through. None of them did. And I asked the guys, the Patreon guys, to DM me if they heard anything that was going around the Slack channel. I had a few DMs which were for this fake subscribe guy and this fake Scarface guy. I was like, please get out of my DMs. The only ones that were really useful, as I said, was Leicester. Sam Martin, I think it is, isn't it? He had that team early doors. The Liverpool team from Spy and Cop seemed reliable because they were a big account, 100,000 followers, about 250,000 tweets or something. And the Chelsea correspondent from Goal obviously had the Chelsea team. That was so late. It was literally 2 minutes before the deadline. Those were the only ones. Other than that, I was just blocking out the nonsense, mate. So not being on Twitter, I wouldn't have been hunting through Twitter anyway. Brain damage. I would have just been looking through our Patreon Slack to see if anybody had anything.
Exactly.
Brain damage. You fret about it. What are you going to do? We all knew we was going to get to 2:50 p.m. and someone was probably going to not be playing who we was expecting. Turned out basically it was the Liverpool guys. It's all right. Make a decision. Salah missing out was just about the worst one for me because then I had the value tied up basically in the sense that I didn't really want to be
money
leaving free. Yeah, I didn't want to be leaving 3-4 million. You think, oh, okay, Mane's playing. No, he ain't playing either. The contingency, obviously, with no Salah, was potentially to go back to Trent and Robertson. And I wasn't going back to that either because Trent wasn't playing. And by that point, I was dead in my mind. I was going for triple Burnley and not changing it. So just left a hole in my pocket. And then obviously I'm looking at the money spare and I'm going, I don't like my team now. And then you think, do you want to chop other things up? Oh, I could go Aubameyang and Jesus. Then I've not got Mahrez. I really want to go Mahrez over Jesus. Then Mahrez doesn't play. But stress, panic, no. This is why I think we'll probably end up talking about this tomorrow.
Exactly. I think so. It's a good idea. So thank you all for tuning in. The first hour and a half of unwinding the season. There's plenty more of thoughts that will come to our minds. I think I'm still decompressing from the end of the season, figuring it all out and having a look back at my team and what have you. But thank you for tuning in again. Thank you for joining us throughout the entire season. You got nowhere to go because we're not going anywhere. The content's still going to be coming thick and fast. And don't forget that being good at FPL doesn't actually make you a better human being, James. Being kind to other people does.
Yes.
So stay safe, guys. Be good. Ciao for now.
And being bad at FPL doesn't make you a bad person either. Thank you very much, everybody. Be nice to each other. Cue music, man. Ciao.
Champione.